College football national championship wrapped up last night with Michigan pretty much for the vast majority of the game dominating Washington and winning their first national championship since 1997. And now the big question on that front is going to be, will it stand? Will it last? Or will the NCAA vacate it because of the whole cheating, the whole sign stealing scandal, Connor Stallions, all of that? If it is taken away, it would be a very fitting end to this format where they basically, this was a very fitting end to the 4-team playoff where a lot of people, I think the vast majority of people, when the 4-team playoff was announced, I think most people thought, okay, this isn't going to last very long. This is basically just an interim thing. This is just a middle ground spot before we jump up to whatever the final number is. Even 12, I'm not 100% sure if it's completely done, although with how conference realignment is going, we may be stuck at 12. Just simply because with conference consolidation, you may get to a point where there are only 6 conferences. And thus, you can have every conference champion get in. But even then, with the mega conferences, you may have a situation where, because there are just so many teams in conferences like the Big Ten, the SEC, that certain schools that used to be powers, I wonder if there will eventually be a reverse of this conference consolidation thing. Because as things progress with college football playoff, as it expands, you might see a situation where, look at what happened to Washington last night against Michigan, who will, starting next year, both be Big Ten schools. If that's the case, then Washington, who this year went undefeated, were able to get to the national championship game, depending upon how they went, or depending upon how well they played against the rest of the Big Ten, you see what happened to them against Michigan, they might have been 3rd, 4th, maybe even 5th in the conference this year, behind Michigan, behind Ohio State, perhaps even behind Penn State or Iowa. Probably not, but they would have been 3rd, and even in a 12-team playoff, they might not have been in the playoff picture. So I wonder how long before either A, you get another expansion to the playoff because these upper mid-tier big conference teams are like, hey, we only lost to the number 1 and number 3 team in the nation. We deserve to have an opportunity to play to see if we can improve. And then, or on the flip side, you see, teams very similar to what Florida State said back in the day, where they said, we have a better chance of making it and winning the national championship if we're in the ACC because we don't have as many teams we have to compete against as compared to now where you have, in the SEC and the Big Ten especially, you could have a team like a Texas, like an Oklahoma, like a USC, like a Washington, like an Oregon, who, if they were still in the Big 12 or the Pac 12, they would have gotten a spot in the playoffs, but now because they're in the Big 10 or the SEC, they're not. Now, I know this is all about money in the grand scheme of things, but does the opportunity to win a national championship and get that money supersede the conference money? That's going to be the question that's going to be asked, I think, a couple of times over the next couple of years. And it's going to be interesting to see if there's going to be a bit of a reversal in terms of the conference realignment of schools starting to say, hey, we want to get back to where we have an opportunity to make it to the national championship game, now that that's pretty much all anyone cares about. Yeah, like back in the day when it was only 2 teams, or even with this system where it was only 4, it was like, okay, we have to get into one of the bigger conferences to have a better chance of getting into the playoff. But now, with more teams, but more consolidation as well, you may have a situation where it's not beneficial to be in a larger conference. It may be beneficial to be in a smaller conference. And a lot of people are going to say, oh, they hate that. And I can understand why you hate that, but it's still good that, wouldn't you rather have more competition instead of